Yay! Welcome to Hump Day, and for Chris and Sanji, uh, the mother of Baggins was here before y'all.
I got here before you, Sanji. I saw you in there. I saw you in there. I was like, yes, yes, Sanji.
Before I forget, I am old new dude. She
I'm
is,
the mother of Baggins.
and he
And
is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
So this is a rare uh, three heads of the dragon.
Yeah, it's different third head than we've had in the past.
Yeah. This is definitely different. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I was glad that due to illness and the husband and everything, Lizzie hasn't been able to join us like the last week and a half, but now she's been able to. This might even work out to those days that I'm not able to do a live stream for personal reasons, health reasons, or whatever. I think y'all two, since how you're admin, you have the start button. As long I think I set it up, y'all should be able to do a live stream without me. Um,
On your channel?
yes.
Oh, we may have to give that a try sometime.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Well, I
Danny
mean,
cosplay old new dude.
if I drop out for signal, y'all will still go. I mean, because she had the start button. I mean, yeah, you
All
should
right,
be good. Woo!
Woo!
sounds good.
All right. Without any further ado, we'll start with the second brains of the operation because now Lizzie is the second brain. Richard, he will say what he saw in the chapter, and then
Wait,
I'll jump in with
wait,
my
that
stupid
doesn't match
stuff.
what you just said. You said we're going to start with the second brain, and then you declared Lizzie was the second brain. So is Lizzie?
Yeah.
Rough
Well, no,
stuff.
I was just saying that there's two brains now, and
All right. Anyway,
me. Take it away, Richard.
Pod says I'm scared. Storm 27, Daenerys 3. A dragon is no slave. All? The slave girl sounded wary. Your Grace, did this one's worthless ears mishear you? Cool green light filtered down through the diamond-shaped panes of colored glass set in the sloping triangular walls, and a breeze was blowing gently through the terrace doors, carrying the scents of fruit and flowers to the garden beyond. Your ears heard true, said Dany. I want to buy them all. Tell the good masters, if you will. She had chosen a Carthian gown today. The deep violet silk brought out the purple of her eyes. The cut of it bared her left breast. While the good master While the good masters of Astapor conferred among themselves in low voices, Dany sipped tart persimmon wine from a tall silver flute. She could not quite make out all that they were saying, but she could hear the greed. Each of the 8 brokers was attended by 2 or 3 body slaves, though one Grasden, the eldest, had 6. So as not to seem a beggar, Dany had brought her own attendants, Iri and Jeekwe in their sand silk trousers and painted vests, old Whitebeard and mighty Belwas, her blood riders. Sir Jorah stood behind her, sweltering in his green surcoat with the black bear of Mormont embroidered upon it. The smell of his sweat was an earthy answer to the sweet perfumes that drenched the Astapori. All growled Crest Mo Naklaws, who smelled of peaches today. The slave girl repeated the word in the common tongue of Westeros. Of thousands, there are 8. Is this what she means by all? There are also 6 centuries, who shall be part of a 9,000 when complete. Would she have them too? I would, said Dany when the question was put to her. The 8,000s, the 6 centuries, and the ones still in training as well. The ones who have not earned the spikes. Crassus turned back to his fellows. Once again, they conferred among themselves. The translator had told Dany their names, but it was hard to keep them straight. We understand. 4 of the men seemed to be named Grasden, presumably after Grasden the Great, who had founded Old Gis in the dawn of days. They all looked alike. Thick, fleshy men with amber skin, broad noses, dark eyes. Their wiry hair was black, or a dark red, or that queer mixture of red and black that was peculiar to Giscari. All wrapped themselves in tokars, a garment permitted only to freeborn men of Astapor. It was the fringe on the tokar that proclaimed a man's status, Dany had been told by Captain Grelio. In this cool green room atop the pyramid, 2 of the slavers wore tokars fringed in silver, 5 had gold fringes, and one, the oldest Grasden, the oldest Grasden, as opposed to the other Grasdens, displayed a fringe of fat white pearls that clacked together softly when he shifted in his seat or moved an arm. We cannot sell half-trained boys, one of the silver-fringed Grasdens was saying to the others. We can if her gold is good, said a fatter man whose fringe was gold. They are not unsullied. They have not killed their sucklings. If they fail in the field, they will shame us. And even if we cut 5,000 raw boys tomorrow, it would be 10 years before they are fit for sale. So we get this 10 years a couple times this chapter.
Yeah.
What will we tell the next buyer who comes seeking Unsullied, right? Which makes that, because I had implied that maybe it was only 9 years of training, but they do say 10 years twice in this chapter.
Okay.
We will tell him that he must wait, said the fat man. Gold in my purse is better than gold in my future. Dany let them argue, sipping the tart persimmon wine and trying to keep her face blank and ignorant. I will have them all, no matter the price, she told herself. The city had 100 slave traders, but the 8 before her were the greatest. When selling bed slaves, field hands, scribes, craftsmen, and tutors, these men were rivals, but their ancestors had allied one with the other for the purpose of making and selling the Unsullied. Brick and Blood had built Astapor, and Brick and Blood her people. It was Krasnus who finally announced the decision. Tell her that the 8,000 she shall have, if her gold proves sufficient, and the 6 centuries if she wishes. Tell her to come back in a year, and we will sell her another 2,000. In a year I shall be in Westeros, said Dany when she had heard the translation. My need is now. The Unsullied are well trained, but even so, many will fall in battle. I shall need the boys as replacements to take up the swords they drop. She put her wine aside and leaned toward the slave girl. Tell the good masters that I want even the little ones who still have their puppies. Tell them that I will pay as much for the boy they cut yesterday as for an Unsullied and a spiked helm. The girl told them. The answer was still no. Dany frowned in annoyance. Very well. Tell them I will pay double so long as I get them all. Double? The fat one in the gold fringe all but drooled. The little whore is a fool, truly, said Krasnus Monaclaws. Ask her for triple, I say. She's desperate enough to pay. Ask for 10 times the price of every slave, yes. The tall Grasson with the spiked beard spoke in the common tongue, though not so well as the slave girl.
I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay.
Just
Your
having
Grace. Pardon me. Your Grace, he growled. Westeros is being wealthy, yes, but you are not being queen now. Perhaps we'll never be being queen. Even Unsullied may be losing battles to savage steel knights of 7 kingdoms. I'm reminding the good masters of Astapor are not selling flesh for promisings. Are you having gold and trading goods sufficient to be paying for all these eunuchs you are wanting?
Hi, Mother Roy.
Hey, Mother Roy.
Hey.
You know the answer to that better than I, good master, Dany replied. Your men have gone through my ships and tallied every bead of amber and jar of saffron. How much do I have? Sufficient to be buying one of thousands, the good master said with a contemptuous smile. Yet you are paying double, you are saying. 5 centuries, then, is all you buy. Your pretty crown might buy another century, said the fat one in Valyrian. Your crown of the 3 dragons. Dany waited for his words to be translated. My crown is not for sale. When Viserys sold their mother's crown, the last joy had gone from him, leaving only rage. Nor will I enslave my people, nor sell their goods and horses. But my ships you can have, the great cog Balerion and the galleys of Vagar and Meraxes. She had warned Grelio and the other captains it might come to this, but they had protested the necessity of it furiously. 3 good ships should be worth more than a few paltry eunuchs. The fat Grasson turned to the others. They conferred in low voices once again. 2 of the thousands, the one with the spiked beard said when he turned back. It is too much, but the good masters are being generous, and your need is being great. 2,000 would never serve for what she meant to do. I must have them all. Dany knew what she must do now, though the taste of it was so bitter that even the persimmon wine could not cleanse it from her mouth. She had considered long and hard and found no other way. It's my only choice. Give me all, she said, and you may have a dragon. There was the sound of indrawn breath from Jiqui beside her. Crassus smiled at his fellows. Did I not tell you? Anything she would give us. Whitebeard stared in shocked disbelief. His hand trembled where it grasped the staff. No! He went to one knee before her. Your Grace, I beg you, when you're thrown with dragons, not slaves, you must not do this thing. You must not presume to instruct me. Sir Jorah, remove Whitebeard from my presence. Mormont seized the old man roughly by an elbow, yanked him back to his feet, and marched him out onto the terrace. Tell the good masters I regret this interruption, said Dany to the slave girl. Tell them I await their answer. She knew the answer, though. She could see it in the glitter of their eyes and the smiles they tried so hard to hide. Astapor had thousands of eunuchs and even more slave boys waiting to be cut. But there were only 3 living dragons in all the great wide world, and the Jaskari lust for dragons. How could they not? 5 times had old Gist contended with Valyria when the world was young, and 5 times gone down to bleak defeat. For the Freeholder had dragons and the Empire had none. The oldest Grasson stirred in his seat, and his pearls clacked together softly. A dragon of our choice, he said in a thin, hard voice. The black one is largest and healthiest. His name is Drogon, she nodded. All your goods, save your crown and your queenly raiment, which we will allow you to keep. The 3 ships and Drogon. Done, she said in the common tongue. Done, the old grass had answered in his thick Valerian. The others echoed that old man of the pearl fringe. Done, the slave girl translated. And done, 8 times done. The Unsullied will learn your savage tongue quick enough, added Crassus Mondaclaus, when all the arrangements had been made. But until such time, you will need a slave to speak to them. Take this one as our gift to you, a token of a bargain well struck. I shall, said Dany. The slave girl rendered her words to her and hers to him. If she had feelings about being given for a token, she took care not to let them show. Arson Whitebeard held his tongue as well when Dany swept by him on the terrace. He followed her down the steps in silence, but she could hear his hardwood staff tap-tapping on the red bricks as they went. She did not blame him for his fury. It was a wretched thing she did. The mother of dragons had sold her strongest child. Even the thought made her ill. Yet down in the Plaza of Pride, standing on the hot red bricks between the slavers' pyramid and the barracks of the eunuchs, Dany turned on the old man. Whitebeard, she said, I want your counsel, and you should never fear to speak your mind with me when we are alone. But never question me in front of strangers. Is that understood? Yes, your grace, he said unhappily. I am not a child, she told him. I am a queen. Yet even queens can err. The Astaporian cheated you, your grace. A dragon is worth more than any army. Aegon proved that 300 years ago upon the field of fire. I know what Aegon proved. I mean to prove a few things of my own. Dany turned away from him to the slave girl standing meekly beside her litter. Do you have a name, or must you draw a new one every day from some barrel? That is only for Unsullied, the girl said. Then she realized the question had been asked in High Valerian. Her eyes went wide. Oh, your name is O? No, your grace. Forgive this one her outburst. Your slave's name is Missandei, but...
That's not very often that Dany is funny, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. Missandei is no longer a slave. I free you from this instant. Come ride with me in the litter. I wish to talk. Ricardo helped them in, and Dany drew the curtains shut against the dust and heat. If you stay with me, you will serve as one of my handmaids, she said as they set off. I shall keep you by my side to speak for me as you spoke for Crassus. But you may leave my service whenever you choose. If you have father or mother you would sooner return to. This one will stay, the girl said. This one, there is no place for me to go. I will serve you gladly. I can give you freedom, but not safety, Dany warned. I have a world to cross and wars to fight. You may go hungry. You may grow sick. You may be killed. Father Margulis, said Missandei in High Valerian. All men must die, Dany agreed, but not for a long while, we may pray. She leaned back on the pillows and took the girl's hand. Are these Unsullied truly fearless? Yes, your grace. You serve me now. Is it true they feel no pain? The wine of courage kills such feelings. By the time they slay their sucklings, they have been drinking it for years. And they are obedient? Obedience is all they know. If you told them not to breathe, they would find that easier than not to obey. Then he nodded. And when I'm done with them, your grace? When I've won my war and claimed the throne that was my father's, my knights will sheathe their swords and return to their keeps, to their wives and children and mothers, to their lives. But these eunuchs have no lives. What am I to do with 8,000 eunuchs when there are no more battles to be fought? The Unsullied make fine guards and excellent watchmen, your grace, said Missandei. And it is never hard to find a buyer for such fine, well-blooded troops. Men are not bought and sold in Westeros, they tell me. With all respect, your grace, Unsullied are not men. If I did resell them, how would I know they could not be used against me? Dany asked pointedly. Would they do that? Fight against me? Even do me harm? If their master commanded, they do not question, your grace. All the questions have been cold from them. They obey. She looked troubled. When you are done with them, your grace might command them to fall upon their swords. And even that they would do? Yes, Missandei's voice had grown soft. Your grace? Dany squeezed her hand. You would sooner I did not ask it of them, though. Why is that? Why do you care? This one is not. Your grace. Tell me. The girl lowered her eyes. 3 of them were my brothers once, your grace. So we discussed this in Dany's last chapter. Girl Nettles argues it is possible for them to remember each other, but Old New Dude and I like the interpretation that Missandei might be part Ithakevron, essentially a child of the forest and potentially much older than she appears. Any thoughts, Lizzie?
I'm not sure about that. I know that there's a lot of theories about our little scribe out there, and I have to confess, like when I think of this chapter, my mind just like wanders to other things, and so I haven't always given Missandei as much thought as everybody else has. But I kind of like that. I kind of like the Children of the Forest. She knows so many languages. She's so young. We know the waif
Yeah.
can be frozen if she's poisoned. So it's not like even, I mean, worst case scenario, you've got someone who's kind of been frozen in time, but she's so smart. I'm not saying that you can't be smart and
I mean, the
young.
point is,
I'm just
if she was
saying,
really, if they really always start their training at 5, and then her brothers would have been taken at 5, they seem like they've been fully trained. So it seems like they've been there for 10 years. She remembers her brothers. It feels like she has to be a lot
she
older
has to be
than
older than 8 or
Danny
9.
thinks. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Danny thinks she's no older than 10. That doesn't seem right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Then I hope your brothers are as brave and clever as you are. Danny leaned back into her pillow and let the litter bear her onward, back to Beleriand one last time to set her world in order, and back to Drogon, her mouth set grimly. It was a long, dark, windy night that followed. Sorry, I was thinking that we were going to be on the trail back, and then I realized what was going on there. Danny fed her dragons as she always did, but found she had no appetite herself. She cried a while, alone in her cabin, then dried her tears long enough for yet another argument with Grolio. Magister Illyrio is not here, she finally had to tell him, and if he was, he could not sway me either. I need the installing more than I need these ships, and I will hear no more about it. Anger burned the grief and fear from her, for a few hours at the least. Afterwards, she called her blood riders to her cabin with Ser Jorah. They were the only ones she truly trusted. So a couple things here. It's weird that the implication is that Strong Belwas isn't there because he seems to be fully in on what's going to happen next. And the implication is that he's not part of this, so I'm not quite sure how that works.
Uh-huh.
And then if anyone needs a refresher, Ago sounds kind of like Arrow. Ricaro's first 5 letters are the same as Eric with the first A moved to the end. And Jogo is the whip, but I just remember him as not sounding like Arrow or Eric. She meant to sleep afterward, to be well rested for the morrow, but an hour of restless tossing in the stuffy confines of the cabin soon convinced her that was hopeless. Outside her door, she found Ago fitting a new string to his bow by the light of a swinging oil lamp. Ricaro sat cross-legged on the deck beside him, sharpening his Eric with the whetstone. Danny told them both to keep on with what they were doing, and went up on deck for a taste of the cool night air. The crew left her alone as they went about their business, but Ser Jorah soon joined her by the rail. He's never far, Danny thought. He knows my moods too well. Khaleesi, you ought to be asleep. Tomorrow will be hot and hard, I promise you. You'll need your strength. Do you remember Aroa? She asked him. The Lazarean girl? They were raping her, but I stopped them and took her under my protection. Only when my son and stars was dead, Mago took her back, used her again, and killed her. Ago said it was her fate. I remember, Ser Jorah said. I was alone for a long time, Jorah. All alone but for my brother. I was such a small, scared thing. Viserys should have protected me, but instead he hurt me and scared me worse. He shouldn't have done that. He wasn't just my brother, he was my king. Why do the gods make kings and queens if not to protect the ones who can't protect themselves? Some kings make themselves. Robert did. He was no true king, Danny said scornfully. He did no justice. Justice. That's what kings are for. Ser Jorah had no answer. He only smiled and touched her hair so lightly. It was enough. That night she dreamt that she was Rhaegar riding to the Trident, but she was mounted on a dragon, not a horse. When she saw the usurper's rebel host across the river, they were armored all in ice, but she bathed them in dragon fire, and they melted away like dew and turned the Trident into a torrent. Some small part of her knew that she was dreaming, but another part exulted. This is how it was meant to be. The other was a nightmare, and I have only now awakened.
Yeah, that is a prophetic dream.
I have a hard time
Right?
getting past every time Ser Jorah is like, she even says it, she's like, her old bear is never far from her. And I'm like, ugh, I know.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't,
yeah, and the fact that
like, don't you
it was
touch her.
enough. I'm like, man, you're being generous there, Danny, because it feels like that was more creepy than enough. But
You're
okay,
like, she's closer than you think.
Yeah. Well,
All right, let's get to Quaithe though.
Yeah.
She woke suddenly in the darkness of her cabin, still flushed with triumph. Balerion seemed to wake with her, and she heard the faint creak of wood, water lapping against the hull, a footfall on the deck above her head, and something else. Oh, by the way, A Search of Ice and Fire has that as football instead of footfall. Anyway, I thought that was funny.
I blame Pod.
Someone was in the cabin with her. Iri? Jiqui? Where are you? Her handmaids did not respond. It was too black to see, but she could hear them breathing. Jorah, is that you? They sleep, a woman said. They all sleep. The voice was very close. Even dragons must sleep. She's standing over me. Who's there? Danny peered into the darkness. She thought she could see a shadow, the faintest outline of a shape. What do you want of me? Remember, to go north, you must journey south. To reach the west, you must go east. To go forward, you must go back. And to touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. Quaith? Dany sprung from the bed and threw open the door. Pale yellow lantern light flooded the cabin, and Eerie and Jeekwe sat up sleepily. Khaleesi? Murmured Jeekwe, rubbing her eyes. Viserion woke and opened his jaws, and a puff of flame brightened even the darkest corners. There was no sign of a woman in a red lacquer mask. Khaleesi, are you unwell? Asked Jeekwe. Yay, my favorite editing error that the books have the offer the football. As long as I'm giving refreshers, Eerie has a name similar to Arya, 4 letters starting and ending with the same vowel. She looks like a boy and is an expert at horseback riding like Arya. Jeekwe has a longer name ending in the same vowel like Sansa. She is more feminine and is better at most feminine traditional skills like Sansa. Anyway. And yet, both recently Preston Jacobs did a competition, a trivia competition with Carmine and Trey the Explainer, and they both got them backwards. Anyway, go ahead.
Hey, she thought she could see a shadow.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Which of course we it's Quaith of the Shadow, and I'm always highlighting the fact that the cat has sort of associated Ashara Dane with the Shadow in both the first 2 books.
Yeah,
Go on.
well, that was it.
Yep, I noticed that too. A dream. Dany shook her head. I dreamed a dream, no more. Go back to sleep. All of us go back to sleep. Yet try as she might, sleep would not come again. If I look back, I am lost, Dany told herself the next morning as she entered Astapor through the harbor gates. She dared not remind herself how small and insignificant her following truly was. She would lose all courage. Today she rode her silver, clad in horsehair pants and painted leather vest, bronze medallion belts about her waist, and 2 more crossed between her breasts. Eerie and Jeekwe had braided her hair and hung it with a tiny silver bell whose chimes sang of the undying of Karth, burned in their palace of dust. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, the slavers don't realize what this means, but we as rereading can realize that she is dressed for battle.
Mm-hmm.
The red brick streets of Astapor were almost crowded this morning. Slaves and servants lined the ways, while the slavers and their women donned their tokars to look down from their stepped pyramids. They're not so different from Carthene after all, she thought. They want a glimpse of dragons to tell their children of, and their children's children. It made her wonder how many of them would ever have children. Aga went before her with his great Dothraki bow. Strong Belwas walked to the right of her mare, the girl Missandei to her left. Sir Jorah Mormont was behind, in mail and surcoat, glowering at anyone who came too near. Makaro and Jogo protected the litter. Dany had commanded that the top be removed, so 3 dragons might be chained to the platform. Do we know whether or not Jorah? I didn't pay attention to this. Whether Jorah was actually in full mail when he was previously here? Oh no, he was left behind. Never mind. He was left behind. He was specifically left behind, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, the last time that she was here, she did bring him, and he was in surcoat, but not mail.
Not mail. Okay. In mail and surcoat now. Yeah. So once again, there's some clues here.
Yeah.
Eerie and Jeekwe rode with them to try and keep them calm. Yet Viserion's tail lashed back and forth, and smoke rose angry from his nostrils. Rhaegal could sense something wrong as well. Thrice he tried to take wing, only to be pulled down by the heavy chain in Jeekwe's hand. Drogon coiled into a ball, wings and tail tucked tight. Only his eyes remained to tell that he was not asleep. The rest of her people followed. Rolio and the other captains and their crews, and the 83 Dothraki who remained to her of the 100,000 who had once ridden in Drogo's Khalasar. She put the oldest and weakest on the inside of the column, with the nursing women and those with child, and the little girls and the boys too young to braid their hair. The rest, her warriors such as they were, rode outside and moved their dismal herd along, the 100-odd gaunt horses that had survived both Red Waste and Black Salt Sea. I ought to have a banner sewn, she thought as she led her tattered band up along Astapor's meandering river. She closed her eyes to imagine how it would look, all flowing black silk, and on it the red 3-headed dragon of Targaryen, breathing golden flames, a banner such as Rhaegar might have borne. The river's banks were strangely tranquil. The Worm, the Astapori called the stream. It was wide and slow and crooked, dotted with tiny wooded islands. She glimpsed children playing on one of them, darting amongst elegant marble statues. On another island, 2 lovers kissed in the shade of tall green trees, with no more shame than Dothraki at a wedding. Without clothing, she could not tell if they were slave or free. The plaza. This kind of reminds me of the other Daenerys and right in the water
And the
gardens.
water gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Plaza of Pride, with its great bronze harpy, was too small to hold all the Unsullied she had bought. Instead, they'd been assembled in the Plaza of Punishment, fronting on Astapor's main gate, so they might be marched directly from the city once Daenerys had taken them in hand. There were no bronze statues here, only a wooden platform where rebellious slaves were racked and flayed and hanged. The good masters placed them so they will be the first thing a new slave sees upon entering the city, Missandei told her as they came to the plaza. At first glimpse, Dany thought their skin was striped like the Zorses of the Jogos Nye. Then she rode her silver near and saw the raw red flesh beneath the crawling black stripes. Flies, flies and maggots. The rebellious slaves had been peeled like a man might peel an apple in a long, curling strip. One man had an arm black with flies from fingers to elbow and red and white beneath. Dany reined in beneath him. What did this one do? He raised a hand against his owner. Her stomach roiling, Dany wheeled her silver about and trotted toward the center of the plaza, the army she had bought so dear. Rank on rank they stood, her stone half-men with their hearts of brick, 8,600 in the spiked bronze caps of fully trained Unsullied, and 5,000 odd behind them, bareheaded, yet armed with spears and short swords. The ones farthest in the back were only boys she saw. They stood straight and still as all the rest. That's interesting that they use the term half-men, because we associate that with Tyrion. I don't know what that means.
Funny, because when Daenerys is marching in the first time with like her little haggard, when she leaves the bear back in the boat, I always think of that. I think of that scene when they send Tyrion to greet the Dornishmen coming in, and he's like,
Okay.
I got my little half-assed party back here, not nearly as impressive, but it's something.
Yeah.
And I always think of that when Dany comes in with her Carthian gown, and she's like, I'm trying. I got my breast out to take off the attention that I have nobody back here, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop and think how few people she had to protect her all together in Astapor. That could have gone completely a different way. And the dragons were taken, and her taken, and all the rest of the people put to death.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crassus Modoclaws and his fellows were all there to greet her. Other well-born Astapori stood in knots behind them, sipping wine from silver flutes as slaves circulated among them with trays of olives and cherries and figs. The elder Grasden sat in a sedan chair supported by 4 huge copper-skinned slaves. Half a dozen mounted lancers rode along the edges of the plaza, keeping back the crowds who had come to watch. The sun flashed blinding bright off the polished copper discs sewn to their cloaks, but she could not help but notice how nervous their horses seemed. They feared the dragons, and well they might. Crassus had a slave help her from her saddle. His own hands were full. One clutched his tokar while the other held an ornate whip. Here they are, he looked at Missandei. Tell her they are hers, if she can pay. She can, the girl said. So Jorah barked a command, and the trade goods were brought forward. 6 bales of tiger skins, 300 bolts of fine silk, jars of saffron, jars of myrrh, jars of pepper and curry and cardamom, an onyx mask, 12 jade monkeys. Is that a hint the story will include time travel? 12 Monkeys came out in 96, and this book is from 2000, so it could be.
Yeah.
Casks of ink in red and black and green, a box of rare black amethysts. Is this actually the Strangler, or are black amethysts really a thing?
What's in
a
the
box of pearl. I'm sorry?
Oh, nothing. I said, what's in the box?
A box of pearls, a cask of pitted olives stuffed with maggots, a dozen casks of pickled cavefish, a great brass gong and a hammer to beat it with, 17 ivory eyes, and a huge chest full of books written in tongues that Dany could not read. And more and more and more. Her people stacked it all before the slavers. While the payment was being made, Crassus Modoclaws favored her with a few final words in the handling of her troops. They are green as yet, he said through Missandei. Tell the whore of Westeros she would be wise to blood them early. Oh, she's going to blood them early. There are many small cities between here and there, cities ripe for sacking. Whatever plunder she takes will be hers alone. Unsullied have no lust for gold or gems, and should she take captives, a few guards will suffice to march them back to Astapor. We'll buy the healthy ones, and for a good price, and who knows, in 10 years some of the boys she sends us may be Unsullied in their turn. Thus all shall prosper. Connects Illyrio and Varys to the death of Joffrey. Ah, interesting.
I like how this dude is like super unconcerned about anything that happens directly outside his gates. He's like, yeah, as soon as you get them out of here, get them blooded. Like there's so many towns between here
Go
and
kill.
where you're going.
Go kill all my towns.
Go get it.
All
Go
my
get them,
the
Tiger.
towns that are nearby me.
Dick.
So once again, we're being told that it's 10 years before they're trained. Finally, there were no more trade goods to add to the pile. Her Dothraki mounted their horses once more, and Dany said, "This was all we could carry. The rest awaits you on the ships, a great quantity of amber and wine and black rice. And you have the ships themselves, so all that remains is—" "The dragon," finished the Grasden with the spiked beard who spoke the common tongue so thickly. "And here he waits." Sir Jorah Belwas walked beside her to the litter, where Drogon and his brothers lay basking in the sun. Jiqui unfastened one end of the chain and handed it down to her. When she gave a yank, the black dragon raised his head, hissing, and unfolded wings of night and scarlet. Crassus and Monoclaws smiled broadly as their shadow fell across him. That's good. That's some interesting symbolic foreshadowing there too, as their shadow fell across him.
Right.
Dany handed the slaver the end of Drogon's chain. In return, he presented her with the whip. The handle was black dragon bone, elaborately carved and inlaid with gold. 9 long, thin leather lashes trailed from it, each one tipped by a gilded claw. The gold pommel was a woman's head with pointed ivory teeth. "The Harpy's fingers," Crassus named the scourge. Then he turned the whip in her hand, such a light thing to bear such weight. "Is it done then? Do they belong to me?" "It is done," he agreed, giving the chain a sharp pull to bring Drogon down from the litter. Dany mounted her silver. She could feel her heart thumping at her chest. She felt desperately afraid. Was this what my brother would have done? She wondered if Prince Rhaegar had been this anxious when he saw these first hosts formed up across the Trident with all their banners floating on the wind. She stood in her stirrups and raised the Harpy's fingers above her head for all the Unsullied to see. "It is done!" she cried at the top of her lungs. "You are mine!" She gave the mare her heels and galloped along the first rank, holding the fingers high. "You are the dragons now! You're bought and paid for! It is done! It is done!"
Hey,
She glimpsed
one thing before we get too far. Was this what my brother would have done? Question mark. She wondered if Prince Rhaegar had been this anxious. They're not the same thing. Again, she
Allegedly, if
mentioned.
Rhaegar was at the Trident.
Well, no, I mean, she says, "Was this what my brother would have done?" That is the Viserys, not Rhaegar. And then in the next sentence,
Could be.
she wonders if Prince Rhaegar, which we think is
Or
her
it could
father.
be George implying that he's not really her brother, of course.
Right. Well, I mean, you pointed out before that in one sentence they'll say one thing, and then in the next sentence we
Kinda
automatically
like when Littlefinger
assume.
confesses. "Oh, I confess."
Right.
Yeah, it's in all 7 times when her parents' names are mentioned, I've said that. But you're right. This kind of does the same thing with Rhaegar. Is we're thinking that she'd be thinking about Rhaegar,
Right.
and either she's thinking about Viserys, or George is deliberately using language to distance Rhaegar from being her brother.
Right.
Ever wonder, like, when she thinks about how Viserys was like bitter once he sold his crown? I always think, like, really, you think if that guy held onto his crown, like, I always like to imagine
Right.
what, like, today Viserys would look like had he just got to keep his crown. Like, he's so cheerful. He's such a good. He could definitely sweep a kingdom with 10,000 brooms. Like that guy
Right.
was the crown for sure.
All right. Well, we're crossing the Rubicon here, or as she says, the Trident. She glimpsed old Grasden and turned his gray head sharply. He hears me speak Valyrian. The other slavers were not listening. They crowded around Crassus and the dragon, shouting advice. Though the Astapor yanked and tugged, Drogon would not budge off the litter. Smoke rose gray from his open jaws, and his long neck curled and straightened as he snapped at the slaver's face. "It's time to cross the Trident." Of course, this is the crossing the Rubicon moment, Dany thought, as she wheeled and rode her silver back. Her blood riders moved in close around her. "You are in difficulty," she observed. "He will not come," Crassus said. "There is a reason. A dragon is no slave." Dany swept the lash down as hard as she could across the slaver's face. Crassus screamed and staggered back, the blood running red down his cheeks into his perfumed beard. The Harpy's fingers had torn his features half to pieces with one slash. She did not pause to contemplate the ruin. "Drogon," she sang out loudly, sweetly, all her fear forgotten. "Dracarys." The black dragon spread his wings and roared. A lance of swirling dark flame took Crassus full in the face. His eyes melted and ran down his cheeks, and the oil in his hair and beard burst so fiercely into fire that for an instant the slaver wore a burning crown twice as tall as his head. The sudden stench of charred meat overwhelmed even his perfume, and his wail seemed to drown all other sound. When I see it, his eyes melting, and I picture Raiders of the Lost Ark. Chris the Crow's got the popcorn.
Yeah.
Then the plaza of punishment blew apart into blood and chaos. The good masters were shrieking, stumbling, shoving one another aside, and tripping over the fringes of their tokars in their haste. Drogon flew almost lazily at Krasnus, black wings beating. As he gave the slaver another taste of fire, Iri and Jinqui unchained Viserion and Rhaegal, and suddenly there were 3 dragons in the air. When Dany turned to look, a third of Astapor's proud demon-horned warriors were fighting to stay atop their terrified mounts. Another third were fleeing in a bright blaze of shiny copper. One man kept his saddle long enough to draw a sword, but Jogo's whip coiled about his neck and cut off his shout. Another lost a hand to Riccaro's Eric and rode off, reeling and spurting blood. Ago sat calmly notching arrows to his bowstring and sending them at Tokars. Silver goat or plain, he cared nothing for the fringe. Strong Belwas had his Eric out as well, and he spun it. He spun it as he charged. So I would think Strong Belwas would have to be up to speed here, even though it's implied that he wasn't included. I think he must have been. Anyway.
He's just already ready to rock.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe you didn't need to. Maybe you don't need to update him. He's just naturally going to fight with you anyway. Yeah.
Well, I mean, after he's getting liver and onions at the end of whatever fight, and he's like, you know what? Give me a cloak to use for toilet paper. Make sure I'm fed. Let's go.
Well, I'm assuming after she slashed him in the face with the whip, that was the first thing. I mean, he's nimbly quick, so to have his weapon out that fast doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you invite a Targaryen to play Astapor Deal or No Deal.
Spears! Dirty heard one Astapor shout. It was Graston, old Graston and his Tokar, heavy with pearls. Unsullied! Defend us! Stop them! Defend your masters! Spears! Swords! When Riccaro put an arrow through his mouth, the slaves holding his sedan chair broke and ran, dumping him unceremoniously on the ground. The old man crawled to the first rank of eunuchs, his blood pooling on the bricks. The Unsullied did not so much as look down to watch him die. Rank on rank on rank they stood, and did not move. The gods have heard my prayer. Unsullied! Dany galloped before them, her silver gold braid flying behind her, her bell chiming with every stride. Slay the good masters! Slay the soldiers! Slay every man who wears a tokar or holds a whip, but harm no child under 12, and strike the chains off every slave you see. She raised the harpy's fingers in the air, and then she flung the scourge aside. Freedom! She sang out. Dracarys! 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 They shouted back, the sweetest word she'd ever heard. Dracarys! Dracarys! And all around them, slavers ran and sobbed and begged and died. The dusty air was filled with spears and fire.
Should have worn the brown tokar.
Get me my brown pants. Chris and I are waving and eating popcorn from a decayed porch couch we pulled up onto the walls of Astapor. What a great seat. What a show. Rank on rank on rank. They stood. Chills. Up next, Storm 28, Sansa 3. A new dress for a less colorful wedding.
Yeah, this is true. The 2 that are on the island making out are the lucky ones. I doubt the Unsullied went after them.
Yeah, probably not.
I would think anybody who was swimming and not wearing clothes might have been safe. Dany said you can't tell the difference between freedmen.
Yeah.
Well, they took to freedom awful quick there.
Yeah.
Well, and there were clues. There were clues in the last chapter that they're not quite as mindless as they implied, right? Because they won't summon less than 100, because when they do, they lose their discipline, and they right turns on the couch hoping to see the other show. So it makes a lot of sense that they're actually embracing this more than the slavers would have thought. That the slavers are like, well, if they offer them their freedom, they're not going to care. And it's like, well, I don't know about that.
And actually, they followed her order into freedom. She said, slay them, slay them. I free you. She put that freedom in with the order to kill, and I feel like they're following orders. Like they're marching. They're literally marching into their freedom based on her order. Yeah,
there's no conflict here. So why wouldn't they embrace it, right? Yeah, absolutely. But they do really imply that they. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I do think that they probably have dreamed of freedom a lot more than the masters think.
Especially younger ones.
Yeah, well,
Right.
they couldn't sit there and talk back and forth to each other because a great master might hear and then kill them both. And they can't go to the great masters and say, I've been dreaming of freedom. Beat that out of me, please.
If they have, we find out, they have gods that they worship that we don't hear about. They have things that they're doing. They're staying clean. Like they're spending time. They got locker room time. Like you'll never convince me that somewhere in there, they're not so cold that the questions are all gone from them. All of them.
As I said last time, the incorruptible, their incorruptible soldiers are too easily corruptible to sell them in less than 100.
And so if they're getting their Unsullied, they get them from even their own people. In the next few chapters, or in the next book, I forget, we find out that they're taking highborn kids and turning them into Unsullied. And I thought, that's weird, right? Like they're taking their own highborn kids now. Like, don't they kind of rely on them to keep building the gross?
Take what they can. Take whatever they can find, I guess.
Ford, Marine, and Yunkai are just weird to me. So,
well, I mean, every society is at least aware of the concept of conscription, and
worst conscription ever. I was just gonna say that
we're still registering young men for the draft today, right?
Sign on bonus, and you lose your testicles and ball, like in your shaft. Like worst conscription ever.
True. Well, that was actually pretty quick. It's not a terribly short chapter. It's kind of surprising.
It doesn't leave a lot.
I didn't actually write that many notes though. It's just kind of
I was getting ready to say,
story here.
Yeah. It doesn't give a lot of opportunity for theory talk, that type of stuff. There's only a couple of spots.
Like the Quaid thing, but it's all pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that this chapter combines a prophetic dream with a Quaid visit, a glass candle use or whatever, and or however Quaid does her thing.
Yeah. There was something before that, before Quaid.
The prophecy dream?
The dream?
Yeah.
It was the dream right before you're like, let's get to Quaid. Yeah, that's got to be. I mean, to throw the ice armor in there. I mean, that just can't be some random dream.
There were only 3 dragons in the whole wide world, allegedly.
Good point.
Well, I mean, when Bran falls, he looks to a shy, and there are dragons. He
does see a shy. He sees a dragon stir in a shy when he's dreaming.
Look at Lady Thistle here.
Oh yeah.
Fun note, if it really counts, that the first slavers to die all get messed up, just like the Lannisters. One gets choked, one gets an arrow, and one gets a hand cut off.
Aww.
Ooh. Nice.
Love that journey for them.
Yeah.
Hey,
and didn't she say she's got a video coming out tomorrow?
Did she just have one? The Lizzie that was promised.
it took a little bit. Hey, Nettles, didn't you say you got a video coming out tomorrow? Or is that today?
I thought she just had one come out.
Today. Okay.
Oh, the video comes out today.
Okay.
Didn't she have one that come out recently too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reaction video to the Hot D trailer.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Hot D2.
Electric Boogaloo?
Hot D2 Electric Boogaloo. There you go. I just realized there, Lizzie, your hair is Melisandre.
Could be.
Yeah, you do have a nice Melisandre look going there.
Could be. You never know. It's hot in here, You don't know. You can't feel my skin.
Is it, or is that you?
Just burning my night fires.
Everyone liked this video, and Nettles. Yeah,
without a doubt. Yes, definitely. All right, she said 4 on hers. All right, well, I'll give Nettles some love.
Give Nettles some love.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you're a guest today there, Lizzie. Is there anything you want to talk about?
N plus A equals J. I want to say it live. I want to die on that hill. Rickon plus Wyla. That's happening. I'm going to say that. Doesn't even have anything to do with this chapter. I just want to say it because I can't say it enough.
Okay.
That's it. I'm going on.
Who's Tormund?
What's that?
I said,
Who's
who's
Tormund?
Tormund?
Is that?
Who's Tormund?
Does he convince you who Tormund is?
Okay. Okay.
Put her on the spot.
I can see how he could be. Okay, so Corrin Halfhand is what's his name? Got the arrow through the
Lord
Bull.
Commander Gerald Hightower.
Hightower. So Tormund is Wint, right? Oswald. No, because he's the Kettle Black. Man, I'm getting all mixed up here.
So old dude thinks that
Probably
he's actually Lord Dustin, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right, Lord Dustin.
That's who you think he is. I'm not entirely sold, but I'm open to the concept because I don't know who he is. I don't know who he is. I don't. He's clearly lying.
Yeah, he's definitely lying. And he's definitely got kids with the Mormont woman. I love that. I love that he's
and that could be all it is that he's so close to the Mormonts that he's actually learned to read and write. I mean, maybe. I feel like there's got to be something more.
But us, he is definitely someone important.
Right,
well, I mean,
right.
I've heard that him and Lady Mormont, she keeps the daughters, he keeps the sons. But
he's got
he
has daughters with him.
Yeah, Munda.
Yeah. Right.
He's got Munda. But maybe Munda came from a different woman.
Yeah, that's true.
It was exclusive.
Yeah. If it's Lord Dustin the way I think Lord Dustin is, he's definitely got kids from other women.
You're thinking his daughter is like his original legitimate daughter?
No.
Munda?
No, I'm saying that Lord Dustin is a player. He's like Brandon. He likes to sleep around. That's why it took him so long to get married. The people that argued against this theory say that his father is old Lord Dustin and he's called young Lord Dustin, and the father could be 90 years old and be called old Lord Dustin, and then this guy's 20 years younger than that, like 70, and be called young Lord Dustin, but he's still old.
Sure. I mean, as they get older, I mean, we see that with the young king becomes the old king and so forth, right?
Without doubt.
Maybe Munda, Lady Thistle says maybe Munda just wanted to go live at her dad's house at the Cool Beyond.
Maybe.
It's possible.
Yeah, sure.
It's stolen by the right man. Longspear Rick.
Well, if she got stolen, they wouldn't be in the same camp, would they?
There is discussion of her and somebody coming forward, isn't there? I don't remember.
Yeah, Longspear Rick came from Munda.
Yeah. Okay.
Remember, he's like, yeah, she doesn't seem too upset about it. They don't call him Longspear because he fights with a spear, so so she doesn't seem.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
I've always kind of worked under the assumption that the 3 Kingsguard that were at the Tower of Joy, that one of those is Tormund. That's going to be our guy.
Well, I mean, Order of the Green Hands thinks the same thing. They think Tormund is Hightower, Halfhand is Wint, and Mance is
But
Dane.
I do think that both you've got the symbolism of slaying the white bull, and then you've also got the fact that most of the size nicknames that the people at the wall are backwards, right?
Right.
So the giant is really short.
Small
Paul is really big, right? I mean, so it feels like he actually probably we should trust the symbolism and go with the white bull as Corrin Halfhand, right? And then if we already know who Arthur is and who Oswald is, then he's not one of them, right?
Yeah.
Now I have always wondered about Jonathan Dary, although old new dude was kind of arguing that maybe either Jonathan Dary or Jonathan Dary's cloak could be where Lemon Cloak, or he died and then Lemon Cloak took his cloak or something along those lines, which that's kind of interesting because we are specifically people joke about how Lem Lemon Cloak is secretly wearing the what chapter is this? What happens it again? Oh, we just did, we actually already finished, but it was
Winter in
Storm.
Astapor.
We read the whole chapter. It's the Storm 27, Daenerys 3. It's her second Astapor chapter, so it's a dragon is no slave.
Yeah. Well, I like the theory that it is a Kingsguard cloak that is just discolored over the years.
Love that.
Because he's never changed it. He's never washed
right, and
it.
he could still be Richard Longmouth if so. We see all these stories of people like being promoted on the. Okay. We see all these stories of people being promoted on the battlefield, right? This idea that they slayed like multiple kings and stuff. So maybe I'll definitely rewatch. Yeah, it was pretty good. So maybe he could have been promoted to Kingsguard. He could be Richard Longmouth, and Jonathan Derry could have perished on the battlefield, and he could have been promoted to Kingsguard, perhaps.
Yeah, I see that.
Do we see chapters of the White Book where, I mean, very short-lived? I mean, I know we've heard a story. There's got to be a story in there somewhere. Somebody who was like they were knighted, they were given their cloak, and then they died. I feel like
it still bothers me that Jamie specifically says there's precedent for somebody to lose their hand and stay in the Kingsguard, and yet he says I'll have to look it up because that would imply that Corran Halfhand isn't the White Bull, but that he's some previous Kingsguard, right? I mean the way he would remember his own Lord Commander.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't lose the whole hand though.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
Right. If he's still able to hold a shield and then fight with the other hand, then maybe it's not quite the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh.
That would always struck me as a little odd though that he's like oh, there's precedent for it. Oh, I'll have to look it up. I'm like,
I'll look for
really?
it. I'll find it. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Well,
Lemon
Cloak is probably.
I'll find them. Don't you worry.
Well, Lemon Cloak is probably one of my favorite of the Outlaw band, other than Seven.
Tom Sevens.
Yeah, Tom Sevens. Yeah.
Well, Thoros is kind of the most philosophical of them. He's always good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And
all
right,
right, wrap up.
Brillian was a son of Tom Sevens.
What's that?
He says he's way past 7 sons.
Yeah. And he said some of them have a voice as sweet as nightingales, and then we meet Marillion in the Riverlands. I'm like, you little shithead. I wonder if that's one of yours.
Richie Review, Carmine, he's been arguing that Marillion has always been working for Littlefinger, and I don't think I buy it.
Yeah.
I don't think I buy it because I don't think Littlefinger would allow this. In 300 years of history, how many Kingsguard do you think there have been?
7.
Good question. At a time, I suppose. Although technically, there's more than that right now. Even if you don't believe any of the Kingsguard survived, you've still got the Hound, right? The Hound's still running around. Even if you don't believe in the other Kingsguard survived.
That got me way off guard. That was funny.
So what's the average lifespan of a Kingsguard? Well, if it's say it's only a decade, then you've got 7. What's that? So what would that be? 30 to 210, something like that. So 210, hundreds.
Yeah. So
literally hundreds.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, it all depends on whether it's peacetime, wartime, what's going on, if they're killing each other.
So there's the implication is that they're typically there in around mid-20s if you look at the sort of the median age. But so if they lived to be 50 on average, then I suppose that's an average of around 25 years.
And we've seen some Kingsguard. I mean, we've seen Varys and Selmy. We've seen Fire and Blood. We've seen. I mean, they get up there. They get old. Maybe it just depends on.
It'll be like 84. It'll be like 84ish. Anyway. So probably close to 100, at least close to 100, and possibly literally hundreds. So, anyway.
Not counting the turncloaks, and like if you think about the Dance of the Dragons, and you're like, how many Kingsguard have there been? Look at there were Kingsguard on both sides of that too. So
Well, I'm sure Douglas Adams would agree with you, Girl Nettles.
and lots of them.
Well, no, the answer being 42. Anyway.
All right. We got Sansa Friday. That's probably gonna be a really good chapter. I might try to finagle Lizzie to join us again on Friday, just to try to spice up the Sansa's wedding.
Thing.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
I have to be careful what hand gestures I make going forward on some of these chapters.
I'll make them for both of us.
Thank you. But I appreciate everybody joining us Hump Day. Thank you, Lizzie, for joining us on this special occasion. Thank
Absolutely.
everybody for
Great to have you here.
hanging out. Go check out Nettles after 4 p.m. Central. She's dropping a new video. Give her some love.
Spicy sensory.
And we will see y'all Friday. Y'all take care.
That's good.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye.